So listen, I've been talking about Call of Duty a lot lately. I've been making some pretty hot takes, kind of some bold statements, so I figured it was time. Time for me to make the definitive Call of Duty tier list. Alright, so let's get into the tier list here. As you can see, we have GOAT tier, all-time great or S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, F tier, and we don't talk about it tier. I am very excited to put a Call of Duty in here. But let's start off with Cold War, the most recent Call of Duty. So with it being the most recent Call of Duty, there is not that much to say about it yet. All I can really say about it is that it has potential. But it did have an insanely lackluster launch. And I know, before everybody comes and attacks me for it, I know it was rushed, I get it. But that still doesn't mean that it had a very underwhelming launch. I think multiplayer just isn't that fun. I think skill-based matchmaking is kind of ruining it. The potential saving grace for this game is zombies, but there's only one map, and there's only so many times I can play the same map over and over again and not get bored. But ultimately, right now, on a tier list perspective, there's not that much to say about Cold War. So I'm gonna put it in C tier and see how it moves up or down throughout the rest of its lifespan. Now let's look at Modern Warfare. It revitalized the franchise. I mean, look, I made a whole ass video talking about this game and what it did for the community, so go check that out. But I'm gonna be honest, I really liked this game. From launch day to now, I am a fan. I thought the multiplayer was really fun, pretty well made, guns were decently balanced, and when there were issues, they seemed to be fixed. It brought in new Call of Duty players as well as returning old ones. It seemed like Infinity Ward was really involved in the community and cared about the game. And not to mention Warzone. And I know Infinity Ward did not make Warzone, Raven did. But on launch, it was a part of Modern Warfare. It had its own tab in the menu. It wasn't really a standalone game at that point. So when it comes to ranking Modern Warfare on the tier list, if I add Warzone, it would be around all-time great or S tier, but for the sake of this, I'm not going to do that, so it falls into A tier. Here we go, taking a look at Black Ops 4. I really did not like this game, and I think a lot of people share that same opinion with me. I really didn't like the multiplayer and what they did with the non-regen health system, having to heal yourself, and the operators. I thought the specialists were done worse than Black Ops 3, and I wasn't a fan of the maps or how the game flowed. Like, the multiplayer pacing was okay, but when the flow's all messed up, that doesn't really make up for it. The one thing to look for this game as a saving grace is zombies, and it really underperformed. It is easily the worst Treyarch game they have made, especially when it comes to zombies. They launched with a lot of remakes, like Classified being a 5 remake but played worse, and a Mob of the Dead remake with an extra area that was just bad and nobody used. The only good map in Black Ops 4 really was 9, and yet again another situation of how many times can you play one map without getting bored of it. Plus they got rid of the OG perk system. Like, what the fuck are you thinking? Anyways, overall Black Ops 4 is a pretty shit game, so it's going in D tier. Now we have World War II. So World War II is a Call of Duty that came out after Infinite Warfare and was the boots on the ground game that all the fans were looking forward to. But unfortunately, Sledgehammer made it. Personally, I don't think Sledgehammer games should be making Call of Duties, but that's an entirely different discussion. People looked at Sledgehammer to make a boots on the ground game, but they relied on just their game being boots on the ground. They thought that just because it was that way, people would automatically love the game, and that's not how that works, Sledgehammer. The pacing was slow, the maps were bad, it took so long to level up, and the creative class system was so weird. I really just don't have a lot of good to say about this game, but there are two things I will give it credit for, and that's the campaign and their zombies. Even though a lot of people say that the campaign is kind of a reskin of World at Wars, it looked great and was pretty fun. And the zombies kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know they were planning it, and they were pretty good. Obviously not as good as any Treyarch zombies, but I am kind of an elitist when it comes to that, so take that with what you will. So ultimately, if you take out the campaign and the zombies, it's an F tier Call of Duty, but if you add those two in, it slides into D tier. I just don't think you can rely on those two things as a non-Treyarch studio, because that's not what you're selling your game for. Sledgehammer and Infinity Ward sell their games for multiplayer, and if they rely on campaign and zombies, that's just not good marketing. Oh boy, Infinite Warfare. We don't talk about it. I think Infinite Warfare is undeniably the worst Call of Duty of all time. It was so disconnected from the community, and they doubled down on exosuits when nobody wanted it. They looked to Infinity Ward to be the saving grace of the franchise after 2 years of exo movement games nobody wanted, and they went farther into space. And you can argue how much of a decision that was for Activision or for Infinity Ward, but regardless, the game was made, and it didn't do well at all. Nobody liked it, and it is very generally hated. And look, it's not even that bad because of the gameplay. I just think it's a super mid-tier game, but because of the time it came out in and the landscape of the franchise, it was shit timing. And along with shit timing, you made a okay game that again had features that nobody fucking wanted, which is a perfect storm for an awful game for that year. The only bright side was zombies in Spaceland, and that was only okay. So yeah, we don't talk about Infinite Warfare. Now we have Black Ops 3, easily the best exo movement game. They did it the best. They optimized it, made it the most fun and smooth and easiest to play. Although it still was exo movement, and unless you started around the exo movement time, you didn't really want it. So as good as they made it in multiplayer, boots on the ground still would have been a better alternative in most people's minds. So the important thing to look at in Black Ops 3 is the zombies. In my opinion, I think Black Ops 3 had the second best zombies of all time, easy. Look, you had 2 easy top 10 maps in Garad Krovi and Der Eisendrache. It was a great ending to the ultimate story with Richtofen, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takio. I thought it did a great job at wrapping up the story, and the maps were also really fun to play through it. Ultimately, this game was really solid and did a lot of things right. And if there was no exo movement, it was boots on the ground, this would be an all-time great game. But unfortunately, it had exo movement, so it falls in A tier. Boy oh boy, Advanced Warfare. The first advanced movement game, and you can definitely tell it was insanely unpolished. Obviously, throwing in a brand new movement system into a franchise like Call of Duty is not going to be easy, and I give Sledgehammer a lot of respect for trying something this ballsy for a game. And it ultimately did not work out, and I don't blame them for that. What I do blame for Infinite Warfare's downfall is the supply drop system and the pay-to-win features. Having the weapon variant system create guns that are so OP like the Speakeasy just leads to bad things. And only being able to get these weapon variants out of supply drops means that Call of Duty players that have a lot of money to spend or have extreme luck are going to have immediate advantages over anybody else. And that's completely unfair and creates a huge divide in the community of players of your game, to the point where it becomes pay to win. You dump money into the game, you get the best weapon variants, and shit on all the people that can't afford it or are just insanely unlucky. And that's definitely not okay, and that hurt this game a lot in my eyes, and most other people's eyes too. The game was also really silly. I didn't mind that as much, and they had zombies. Here's what I'll say about the zombies. It was okay, but because of all the negative stuff I mentioned, Advanced Warfare does land in C tier for me. Up next, we have Call of Duty Ghosts, a game that marks the end of the quote-unquote golden age of Call of Duty. This game followed Black Ops 2, and a lot of people hated this on release. And the reason why a lot of people hated the game on release is because it was definitely not as good as the CODs that came before it. So at the time, it looked pretty bad, but looking back on it now, it is a much better Call of Duty than what we all thought. And because of that, grading this game takes a lot of retrospect, and it's kind of important, because if you would have asked me what I thought of this game when I was playing it, I would have said the game is slow, the maps are big, and it just feels weird and different. I probably would have put it in D or F tier. But if you ask me now, I'm gonna put it in B tier. I thought it was a pretty above average COD game, which again at the time was a pretty bad one when it came out. But looking at it now, it's pretty solid. Now entering the golden age of Call of Duty, let's start with World at War. World at War was the first game that Treyarch produced, and it had COD zombies. It took the gaming world by storm. It was something that nobody had seen before and was incredible for players. You had classic maps like Nock, Verrückt, Der Riese, and Shinonuma. Now don't get me wrong, there were some issues in those zombies maps. Nocturne and Toten got a little bit repetitive, Verrückt was notoriously hard, and Shinonuma had that thing where only 20 zombies could spawn and you can get around like 5 million. So that leaves only one map, which was Der Riese, which is a top 5 zombies map of all time, by the way, because it had Pack-a-Punch and it had so much replayability. But having one map being so significantly better than all the rest leaves more to be desired from that game, but there's leeway because it was the first game of COD Zombies. Now looking at multiplayer, there were more issues there. Now I didn't play this game in its prime, so I wasn't entirely sure what it was like, but you can't really play it today. It is riddled with hackers. It's pretty untouchable. So because of that, it's unfortunate how this game has aged, but we're looking at it back when we were playing it in its prime, which puts it as an all-time great. Here we go with MW3. So Modern Warfare 3 was the last installment by Infinity Ward for their first 3 games, and it was a good one. There are a few people that say that MW3 is just a reskin of MW2, which in some cases you may not be entirely wrong, but I think they did a lot of things better. I think MW2 was a little bit unpolished and MW3 was way more polished. I thought as a well-rounded multiplayer, MW3 is a better one. It had a good campaign and it felt really good. It obviously had the same old Call of Duty bullshit, but it felt pretty balanced and even overall as a multiplayer. It was very beloved by the community and was played a lot. It's still played today, which puts it as an all-time great. Now let's look at MW2. So MW2, as I said earlier, is a little unpolished. There were some things in this game that were absolutely broken, whether it be guns, perks, attachments, setups, or anything in general. I just don't think having the ability to throw on one-man army in a noob tube while launching one cross map at the start of every game for an immediate 5 kills while you're hunting for a nuke is very balanced. Not to say that ruins the game, but it was definitely a big part of it. Where do you think the term NoobTubers came from? Right here, baby. But there was something special about this game that even I can't put my finger on. Most other people that played this game felt that too, which makes MW2 one of the most popular COD games of all time and one of the most beloved in the franchise. People rank it very highly in their all-time list, and it is at the very top of Infinity Ward's ranking. But regardless of what really makes it so legendary, it's an all-time great nonetheless. Next up, the classic COD 4. COD 4 blew Call of Duty up. It's what made it mainstream. It's what made it huge. And without COD 4, Call of Duty may not be where it is today, or it would have taken them longer, or they would have needed other games to step up in its place. The amount of influence COD 4 had cannot be denied, and just on influence alone, it should be in everybody's top 5s. But also, if you add gameplay in, it's in most people's top 3s. The only issue with COD 4 is that it is a very old game. It is riddled with age, but when it was remastered in 2016, it still held up. It just proves that the base game did stand the test of time. However, I don't think that you can entirely compare this game to a lot of the other ones on this list, so I think it deserves a tier of its own. COD 4 was a revolutionary Call of Duty. We have made it down to the final 2, and let's start with Call of Duty Black Ops. So to start Black Ops off, let's talk about the zombies. It has some pretty classic zombies and probably one of the most notorious maps and well-known ones in Kino der Toten. Look, most of their maps were very good. You had Moon, Ascension, Shang, Call of the Dead, 5. There are so many other ones that were classics. And while some of them not exactly stacking up to one another evenly, it had incredible zombies nonetheless. Now the one thing I will say about Black Ops is that it has a notoriously slow multiplayer, as well as a really high skill floor. I mean, look, you had to be pretty skillful at the game to be any good at launch. Just look at what they did to snipers with the weapon sway and how hard that made it. It definitely was not easy, and it kind of killed a lot of players' drive to play. Although looking more into multiplayer, I thought the maps were good, the guns were fine, and I like what they did a lot with the wager system and the money. Although unfortunately I cannot put Black Ops as the GOAT, but it is at the very top of the all-time greats, which leaves Black Ops 2 as the GOAT of Call of Duty. I think undeniably Black Ops 2 is the best game of all time. I think it has the best and the most well-rounded multiplayer out of all of them. The only complaint that anybody ever had about Black Ops 2 multiplayer was there were a few guns that were a little bit better than the rest. That doesn't mean those guns were bad either. Every gun was viable in that game. It was so much fun, from the maps to the game modes to everything. Custom games. You guys remember custom games? Multiplayer in itself was incredible. Don't even get me started on the zombies. 95% of zombies players have 2 of those maps as their 2 favorite in Mob and Origins. And if you don't have them in your top 2, you are in the minority. And all the other maps in that game were great too. I could talk for hours about this game. The memories that I made on it, the people that I met. While I may catch some flack for this because I started with this game and you may claim bias, I disagree. I think there's so much objective greatness about Black Ops 2 that it is hard to argue it being one of, if not the best games of the Call of Duty franchise. And with Black Ops 2 having all this objective good, it makes it even better to think back on. Well guys, that is my definitive Call of Duty tier list. Please leave in the comments what you agreed with, what you disagreed with, what you think I could have added to certain games that I talked about, and what you think I got wrong. Any takes that you have or anything of the sort, please leave down below. I read all my comments. But yeah, I'm pretty damn happy with this list. Anyways guys, that is my time. That is my definitive Call of Duty tier list. 100% fact, by the way. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate it, and I love you. If you could leave a like and subscribe, it would help me out a ton, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.